welcome back to the kitchen table talk, where no topic is too heavy for the table. And I'm so glad you guys joined us, or taking the time out to join us once again, because y'all know this is a new baby for me. We birthing it, it's birthed.
Push.
We pushed, and we here. Today, we have a little sensitive subject we're going to talk about today. How does child molestation affect your adult intimate relationships?
Yeah, that's a deep one.
That's pretty deep.
It's really deep. It's really deep, but the reality of it is there are so many people out there that have been molested, that have not said anything about it, right? But why?
Still holding back.
They're still holding back, but why? Right? Is it because they're afraid? Is it because sometimes you blame yourself in some weird way, and it's not that you go in front of the man or the woman and you say, hey, touch me, or, but why do we put ourselves in a position, and I say we, because clearly I've dealt with some form or fashion of, but I think mine was more of rape. And even then, I kind of blamed myself. But I blamed myself because I was somewhere that I was told not to be, right? So I was quiet. So it just depends on, each situation or each story is different. But they're all equally important, and we have to talk about it. These are some of the things that will keep us from being our true, authentic self, the person that God has created us to be.
Right.
Because we're not giving ourselves permission to let go of some of those hurts and some of those pains and embarrassments. But today is one of those days where we're saying, get free. Get free. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it, right? And you may not want to come here and talk about it, but this is just an avenue that says it's okay to talk about it. It was not your fault. There's greater out there, and it's time to heal.
Right, and that's pretty much the purpose of the whole show, is being able to talk about things that you would not ordinarily talk about for self-healing, right? That can also educate some and encourage others to be okay with the space that they are in. Yeah. And like you too, you had the experience. I too had an experience as a child that I did not start talking about until I was fully an adult.
Okay.
And it was probably more or less shame.
Okay.
More than anything, I think it was shame. And today, my parents don't even know about it. But it was an experience that I had as a child. And for a long time, I think I even didn't call it molestation because there was no real penetration, but I still was a child. It was someone much, much older than I.
Okay.
And he proceeded to do things to me sexually that was inappropriate.
Right.
And
you were uncomfortable with it.
It made me very uncomfortable at the time.
Yeah.
But the safety mechanism that I had, I think, because of who I am, I think I won't even call it a safety mechanism because it did happen. But because of who I am, the feisty kid that I've always been, and even as an adult, I immediately pushed back on his advances after that episode because I knew it was wrong internally, but so I think I just when he continued to try to advance to me, I just said, if you do not stop, I will scream as loud as I can, and everybody in the world is gonna know what you did.
Right.
And so he didn't ever bother me again after that. But I carried that into my adult life as a secret. No one ever knew.
Now, did that affect
the relationship?
That affected any of your? And when I say any relationship, not necessarily, not only the relationships with like intimate relationships, like with a man, but friendships, because there comes a point, there comes a time in that where now you need your space. You know, sometimes people can get too close on you, and it's a trigger, right? But really, in relationships where there's intimacy involved.
It probably has, unknowingly to me.
Right.
Because I am a person who needs a certain amount of space.
Okay.
Never really thought about it. But yeah, it probably has affected some of my relationships to that extent. Always needing to have control, maybe. I do need to have control, or try to.
Try. Yeah.
In most cases, I
that's
do.
one.
But control, I think, is a factor.
Okay.
So that could be how it has affected. Look, I'm in therapy right
I
now.
feel like that. But let me ask you a question, and seriously. Why haven't you, why did you choose not to share that with your parents?
With my parents.
Not your friends or anything like that, but with your parents.
At the time, I think I was so young, couldn't have been more than 8 or so. I think I was, I don't know, I was going to a friend's house, and I felt probably my mother would not let me go there anymore, maybe. Didn't want to lose my friend. She was also, I always have older friends. I don't know why that is, but she was older than me, which is why her brother was so much older than me.
Okay.
And that's who the perpetrator was, her brother.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that would probably be the main reason then.
But now, why do you choose to tell it now, and you still haven't told your mother?
Now that, I don't know, because I guess I just kind of put it out of my mind.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
So sometimes we put it out of our minds. However, there's triggers, small stuff, that if we were to just give ourselves the opportunity and permission to just sit and think about, you know, things that has occurred in our lives, we would probably be able to connect the why to the what, right?
True.
But because of what you just said, we tend to just push it back because it's nothing that I really want to address. I don't want to address it because why now?
That, and I didn't really remember who or what.
But that doesn't, so that person at this point doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
What matters is that you as the individual, which I believe, but you as the individual gets free from, there's nothing that you're holding on to, right? Because guess who's not benefiting from it? Any other relationship. So right now, your husband. I don't know. Do you believe you're free?
I think I'm free.
Okay, so I would say for others who may still be battling with something that has occurred in their lives as young girls or older, that it could affect your current relationships. And you're not giving yourself the opportunity to reach the capacity of love that you can get or intimacy because you're still holding on to that. So if you were to give some advice to young lady or young men, you know, sometimes we forget that men get molested too, right?
They do.
Yeah. If there was any advice that you'd be able to, that you could give someone right now, you say you were around 8?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to an 8-year-old, if there was something you could tell an 8-year-old that it has not happened to yet, if there's advice you could give that 8-year-old, what would you tell her? If you were being proactive.
Proactive. Yeah. I probably don't. Well, you know what? Don't be afraid to speak up. Yeah. That's just it. Just don't be afraid to speak. I can't say don't put yourself in that situation. Yeah. I didn't know I was putting myself in a situation. You're thinking everything is innocent, and children believe people for who they are at face value. But it would probably be just don't be afraid to speak up. There is no worse that can happen. Right. It's the damage would already have been done. Right. So just speak out and tell, because it would prevent you from carrying a load of guilt around for years, and then, like you said, going into your adult life, affecting your adult relationships,
Right.
which is probably easier said than done. I think people
It
would,
is.
and by speaking up, you would probably, your parents or somebody would probably more than likely be encouraged to get you some professional help, which is what is probably needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, in your case, yours sounds like it was a little more violent by you using the word rape.
Well, I say rape because there was penetration and it was against my will. So I called myself just hanging out, right? But we were supposed to stay in the house until my friend's mom got home from work. And so that's why it was hard for me to talk about it or tell, because I blamed myself. Well, if I had done what my friend's mom told us to do, if we had stayed in the house until she got home from work, it wouldn't have happened.
So how do you think that affected your adult relationships?
I would say that I don't think it really affected it the way most people's experience affected theirs, because by the time I became an adult, I had already talked about it. I had already spoke to someone about it. It wasn't my parents, but I had already gotten help regarding it. So I was able to get it out. I wasn't holding anything in. But I would say this. Now, we can say that when you get raped or molested, you either promiscuous or you're, the total opposite, right? So we'll say, oh, I'm a Scorpio, and so I enjoy, having sex or whatever. But really, is that really it, right?
Well, I do know a lot of Scorpios who are prone to like sex.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm not really.
You saying you don't think that's the reason why you like sex?
I'm not ruling it out, is what I'm saying. I'm not ruling it out. So it can do one thing or the other. So if I enjoy having sex, is it because I'm a Scorpio?
Or is it because you question, is it because of that happened at an early age?
I have questioned that. I have questioned it. But then there were times when I was married where I pulled back. Is it because, so what is the reasoning behind that? And I know we go through different phases in our relationships and our marriages or whatever. But when things were good, right? And I've ran into my guy. Not my guy, but the guy that,
perpetrated.
Yes, in the gym, right? And so it was at that point where I realized that I wasn't free, because if I was, I wouldn't have just froze. I froze, and it was like, and he was, hey, how you doing, right? So there's so many things that can come from being molested, raped, all those things. But are we willing to say that's what it is? We have excuses, or we'll give reasons to why we do certain things the way we do certain things. But if you've had these type of experiences in your life, I'm almost certain that they're attached to some of your whys.
Yeah, but you may not even also be conscious of it either.
Absolutely.
Right. Because, unless you brought to talk about it, because like that just kind of left my mind. He left me alone. I went on about my life and never even really thought about it again until we start talking about child molestation and adult relationships. And I had to think, well, did it affect any of my relationships?
Well, this conversation is a trigger.
Right. Okay.
Where with some other folks, a trigger could be, I saw a guy walking down the street and he had on a red hat. Okay, during the time of that experience, this dude had on a red hat. And so it brings back those memories and those emotions, right? And that may take 20, 25 years to even reach that experience again, or that get that trigger. Because I know someone who was molested, and a girl on girl, she was molested, and she was playing around with her sister. And her sister accidentally hit her, in her private part with her foot, but they're wrestling. And it was at that point where it was a trigger, and all she saw was the person who molested her. And she began to just go off, like literally hitting this girl. And the girl was like, what is going on? but it was a trigger. So, but it was like 12 or 13 years later, right? Sometimes it's those points where we realize I'm still in bondage, or I am in bondage. I haven't gotten free from that. I haven't forgiven. Right? And so we aren't living to the fullest of our capacity because there's still some stuff going on.
Did it have a negative effect in your relationship, in your marriage, or has it had a negative effect?
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I can't even tell you if my ex-husband knows about that experience.
No, you didn't share it.
I don't think I shared it with him, to be honest with you. I don't think I shared it with him. And so if there was a negative experience, unbeknownst to me, like you said, sometimes we just kind of push it back.
Right.
I don't know.
And you didn't share it with your parents either?
I shared it with my mom, but years later.
Years later.
Yeah. I was an adult.
And what would your advice be?
To what age? And to is the person prior to or after?
No, prior. No, it would be prior to, or some young person, or I would say after it happened, because that's really when you would need the advice. I mean, before it happened, I don't think anybody can predict that I'm going to get molested here. So, or you don't go into, because usually 95% of molestation, and I just threw that percentage out there like but I'm knowing it's most of them. They're molested by someone they know, someone they trust.
Yes.
That's usually very hard to say, I'm not going to trust my loved one or something like that. And so it would have to be after, the advice after.
So the advice that I would give someone after it has occurred is the same advice that you would give prior to. Talk to someone. It's okay. Give them permission. Give yourself permission to talk about it. Give yourself permission to find someone that you can trust and that you can talk about it to, right? Holding it in. It's easier said than done.
Yeah,
but you asked me what is the advice?
Yeah, right.
That's my advice.
And that's what I said. Tell somebody. But it's so much, because I remember my long walk home after it happened. It was like, oh, I just want to go take a shower, and I don't want to even remember this day again.
And don't
just
blame
forget
yourself.
It. Yeah.
Don't blame yourself. Talk to someone about it, and understand that. But at a young age, at 8, I can say,
I was 8.
that's really young. But they still need to know that they have to talk about it because it affects you from that point moving forward. Life is different from that point forward. It's different.
Right.
That's what experiences do to us.
Yeah.
They change our way of thinking, no matter how you were raised. If you have a certain experience, you think different from that point forward.
That's what experience is.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being open and candid about your experience.
Table talk.
This is what this is what our mission and our goal is here at the kitchen table, is to talk about it one conversation at a time, and hopefully my vision and goal is that people, like you said, free themselves from bondage, not feel ashamed, not feel alone, because 99.9% of the time it is somebody else out there who has lived your experience, has gone through the same experience.
100%.
Right?
There's nothing
new under the sun. Like, especially if anybody who reads their Bible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, everything under the sun
it didn't just start here.
has happened, and we shouldn't be. And we should be okay with talking about it, being in the space that we're in. And so, wait, my phone. Maybe guess who it is, y'all? My late, no on-time son. Now, you're right in the middle of my taping. Do you need me to come down and get you?
So you guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this
Bye,
topic
Malik.
up. We
I'll
want to
come down and
thank
get
you
you.
for
Bye.
coming to the Kitchen Table Talk once again. This is what we do.
This is what we do, and we keep it all the way real. You see that, right? He's downstairs now after like how many tapings?
Him downstairs.
Him downstairs. So we got to go get him. So anyway, we talk here at the Kitchen Table Talk. This is what we do. No conversation is too heavy. And if any of you have any experiences that you want us to talk about, you may not want to come to the table, inbox me. Let us know what the topic is. We'll definitely talk about it, discuss it. You don't have to expose yourself or come to the table unless you want to, because that's what we do here at the Kitchen Table Talk.